Hey, welcome to Clarksville Vibe the show where we tell stories about people here in Clarksville, Tennessee who make this place the greatest place to live in America. I'm your host, Kevin Kennedy Jr. I get to be a pediatric dentist here in our town. I've done that for 12 or so years. I'm a hometown boy, went to public schools here, Austin P, and have come back to practice pediatric dentistry. And I get the special privilege as your host on this show to bring people from all across our community who are doing really cool things, pioneers in their industry, people making dynamic change, people just who have interesting stories to tell and tell you more about the city that we get to call home. I think Clarksville's great. We chose to call Clarksville home. I'm so excited to be here forever, and it's my privilege to tell you more stories about what makes it so special. Today, our guest is somebody that I'm really excited to talk to because she is a true pioneer in her industry. As you know, we've been going through episodes trying to help equip parents and members of our community on how to lead our children through what is now the maze and chaos of sports and youth sports. And she is our local volleyball expert. She is a pioneer that really kind of helped blow up girls volleyball here in our community. She leads Clarksville Volleyball Club now. She's Jen Garinger. Really excited to talk to her. I think you're going to hear lots of great tips for what makes our girls kind of have access, what makes volleyball cool, what are some of the challenges that she faced introducing volleyball and kind of growing it from a sport that is now really, really widely played here by our girls in our community. So without much further, Jen, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, well, it's an honor to have you. We're really excited about volleyball's just more prominent role. I remember not too that long ago, in high school, you could show up at high school, ninth grade, never have picked up a volleyball before, join the volleyball team, and you might have been all district that year by the time it was over. Just not a lot of organized competition at that time, and not a lot of girls having opportunities to go and play. And now to see walking through Acme sometimes or reading, sports articles in our publications where we're achieving great success. Some of our high school teams are going, on to win championships at different things. Your clubs are doing great and girls are getting the opportunity to play. And I know you've had kind of the role in helping create a lot of the organization for that. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about how you got there. But I think to start, tell us a little bit about what was your experience moving to our town? Because I think you came via the military and you've got this passion for volleyball and you see a void. And how did you feel when you noticed that?
Yeah, so I moved here in about 2005, and actually my husband was heading on a deployment. And so we stayed around for a little bit, and then when he would go, I would kind of go back home to Arizona a couple times. But when I was here, every time I move somewhere new, I look for the volleyball community. I look for some place to, find friends, to help out, volunteer, wherever I can do that. And there wasn't anything. And so I reached out to Austin P because we had a Division I program here. And I thought it was really odd. There's no club opportunity. So I reached out to him. It was Corey Carlin at the time. And he introduced me to a guy who lived in Allensville, Kentucky. So he's a pig farmer. Stephen Lyons, his name, great guy. That's where I got started. I coached for his club, Mid-South Volleyball Association.
Oh, cool.
And he's still doing some club, and he actually just took a position over at Logan County High School. So he's over, not too far away. So I started coaching there, and that was the only club in town. So a couple kids from Clarksville were out there, and that's kind of what led me to the Rossview job afterwards. So I had a dad there that was like, hey, there's a position, Rossview's open. Why don't you try that out? So it was a slow start. I took that position at Rossview, and then when I was there was only 2 girls on the team that really played like club, like true club. And they drove to Nashville to a club out there, and they were sisters. And so we kind of started building that, letting other kids know there was opportunity out there, let them know about the club in Kentucky. I did that for 2 or 3 years. And then honestly, moving here from Arizona originally, I'm not used to storms or tornadoes or any of that stuff. So we didn't have natural disasters. Right. It's just hot.
Yeah.
So when I was moving here, it made me nervous. Like I remember a tournament one time, looking at the counties as I was driving along because I didn't know that, that's how they call them on the radio. In Arizona, there's 7 counties. So it was, just following that along. So it just made me a little nervous making that drive.
Sure.
And I wanted something closer to home. So I was starting to try to find new places, and I was coaching at Rossview at the time, and I would use the gym at Rossview quite a bit, but that's hard to do when you've got other sports that take priority, of course, because school sports.
Boys and girls basketball, you got wrestling, teams going in there, baseball tries to get in there occasionally.
For sure, baseball and softball were in there when the weather's bad. Yeah, so that's kind of started there. I was a satellite club at first. So it was with Alliance, who's still around in Nashville.
Okay.
And then there was another club, Club West, that I was a satellite for. And they were also based out of Nashville, Franklin area. And then I just kind of decided it's something I've done before when I lived in Denver. And I just decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it here. I'm going to run my own club.
Yeah,
so
that's cool. And how old were your kids around that time? Like, just to give people perspective, because it's not like, oh, Jen's got all this free time. You said your husband's deployed. I'm sure that happened frequently.
Yes.
And you've got young kids at that time.
Yes. My son was born in 2005.
So
when I moved here. So he's like 6 months, 6 months old when we got here. And so he was in the ball cart everywhere we went.
Sure.
So the parents helped me out tremendously. The girls, obviously like to play with him because he's a little kid. And then Kiro came along in 2007.
Okay. So you're in the thick of it.
Yeah. Actually,
but I think that goes to show the true passion there, because, if you really didn't have a passion for helping introduce girls to the sport and giving them more competitive opportunities, you certainly had more things that could have controlled your attention. For sure.
But I love the game.
Absolutely.
I love the game.
Yeah.
It's a great environment for my kids to be in, kind of grow up around, athletics.
So let me ask this. So, there's still a generation of parents who have not raised volleyball kids yet, tradition. I'm one of them, I've watched from the sidelines, and my daughters are just now getting to the age where they could kind of be exposed to it in elementary school. But what is it about volleyball that makes it special? And like, what have you found girls have really attached to it that made it so much more of a popular sport now than 20 years ago?
Well, so I started off playing softball. I'll give me as an example. And everyone wanted me to play basketball because I was so tall.
Yeah.
It was a little the touching and the roughness about basketball just never appealed to me. So I feel like volleyball is a little bit more feminine, if you could say. The girls think it's, you have a net, you're not really making contact with kids. Per se. So I think just that, like, alone, most kids that don't like the basketball or that route, they'll try volleyball. Yeah. And it can be a fun, everybody's cheering, gets excited about it. So
yeah, it's some of the most fun environments I've been in is watching volleyball, because it just gets so exciting. It's intense as it's going back and forth, and you really, every kind of volley is one side is scoring a point, and I think that helps to kind of some of the competitive energy. And I've watched everything from middle school girls volleyball all the way to, we've been to several Austin Peay games, and that's been really fun. And just the energy there is exciting, and oftentimes it's competitive, very rarely is it 25-4. But it's, 1 or 2 point difference, and sometimes it's going into that like extra point time. That seems to be really fun for kids to be a part of.
For sure. And that's changed. That's changed to get the game going more, to get it, like you said, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch when people are scoring. Before, back in the day, you couldn't score unless you were serving.
Oh, so that's a rule change.
It was a rule change. Yeah. Now
I feel like I remember that playing, in gym class as a third grader.
I just dated myself.
Okay. Well, it's all good. So we're equipping parents who are our age now.
Right.
That's awesome. I didn't know that was a change, but I do feel like that's more exciting, because it's so much easier to shift momentum and go from there. That's exciting.
Definitely.
Do you feel like, what was your biggest challenge in the early years of getting people to give it a try? Is it because, maybe their parents had no experience? Is it because we really just didn't have the facilities and didn't have access to the time? Like, growing something in this town is crazy. That is what is so mind blowing to me about your story. Is I feel like creating organization behind maybe basketball or soccer, where it's been the sport, or football in our town for decades, is one thing. But volleyball, it's like you really kind of created the energy there.
Yeah, we definitely, I remember tryouts at Rossview the first couple of years. I mean, we had enough to make a team for sure. I don't recall cutting a lot of kids. I do remember having to really break everything down fundamentally. I do remember that. That was a change. We started a little earlier probably than we were supposed to, but hopefully I can get in trouble from all those years ago.
Statute of limitations is gone.
Yeah. So we, just because, form and how to, move your feet and hold your hands.
I mean, we were really an athletic sport. And I think that's sometimes people don't understand that, if you go watch Austin Peay, those girls are world-class athletes, and that you quickly determine that, no, I can't compete out here.
Yes. Yeah. So I just think developing, like they would bring their friends over and their friends, and since we were doing the fundamentals and breaking it down, more and more kids were able to do it then, even probably more so now than now, because it's become so competitive. There's more kids playing year round. Yeah. So it makes it a lot harder now for sure.
Yeah.
Back then it was just, word of mouth, and kids would show up and they would have fun, and then it would just grow.
I think for the parents out here, one consistent theme that I've heard as we've talked to different people from different sports is this idea of capturing people in their early development in sport and making it fun. That's really the goal, that so few of our kids move on to scholarships where they're earning dollars for classes or whatever, or, high championship level volleyball or whatever. But the idea that coaches can create a fun environment for kids to find connection in, build relationships in, learn winning and losing, and learn how to compete and strive for something, that the fun is what makes the sport special.
Yes, for sure. And volleyball's hard. Like, you're keeping an object in the air and you're only allowed to touch it 3 times. So like, I get parents calling me when their kids are 5 years old. Hey, I want to get my kid in volleyball. Yeah. And I was like, well, let's try soccer and basketball, because they all relate. Like, they all those sports to me, like when I'm especially growing up with my daughter and my son who played baseball, basketball, softball, and I would have to coach because that's what everybody did. They volunteered coach. Yeah. I didn't know anything about those sports. Sure. So I was more the control, like the kids, and then I always try to have somebody who really knew what they were doing.
Needed the technician over here.
I needed the technician. Yeah. So I just started to learn, like, oh, you do that in basketball and volleyball.
Yes.
Oh, okay, you do this in soccer or softball. And so it was just all relating. So I would encourage those kids, because you've got a basketball, you're hitting the floor, you've got it's not something that you have to keep in the air. Soccer, you're kicking a ball on the ground. So to me, it just, like, it helps. All those things, I think, helped my daughter, helped my son. Just, it sooner or later will turn into volleyball.
Yes.
10 is probably the youngest I want to start at.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, there's kids that start younger, but I don't want them to get frustrated and not like it. So it's very important to me that we start at an age where they're not going to get too frustrated. They understand it. They can, grasp some concepts of it, which is really neat, because the younger ages, through club, they let them serve closer.
Okay.
And their net is lower.
Yeah.
So they're encouraging them to try to make it easier for them.
Right.
So,
and every sport does that, makes accommodations for the younger ages.
For sure.
Yeah, but 10 is, I mean, that seems pretty reasonable in a kid's, athletic journey, to try maybe some other sports first, develop the athleticism, develop kind of the agility, the hand-eye coordination or hand-foot coordination, how to be coached. That's a big thing. And then, 10 is 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah.
I think when they can keep trying new things, one thing that Isaac Shelby mentioned in his episode with us that I thought was really profound is he said, I want to keep exposing kids to sports that they're not good at so that they can stay humble and so that they have a challenge now that they have to overcome adversity. If they're a great football player, I want them to go and be an okay basketball player, right? Because now they know what it's like to be an okay player and not the star player here. And so for the star soccer player who's been scoring goals since she was 4 to now come out to volleyball and be a kind of a awkward duck, maybe, just trying to hit the volleyball and it's going out of bounds. Like, that's good for her development. And you see that because you've got such long-term perspective. But I think sometimes it's hard for parents like me to see that when it's like, oh, my kid is 10 and you don't know that all the success she's had in basketball or in swimming or in this or that, but you get to see, okay, but you don't get to know dad about the hundreds of kids that we've taken from 10 to 18 and we've made them into really, great volleyball players.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's one of the biggest things I love about team sports. It's teaching these kids to kind of work together. And I feel like even if they're not playing volleyball up until 12 even, being on a team sport like really helps them. It's just easier to transition over into something else because, they're used to it. They've done it before. It's a little harder when kids are coming straight in. They haven't really done anything before. Yeah. And because of the popularity of volleyball, we do get that.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you that. It's a great transition because I feel like I have friends who, I've got this unique kind of experience in parenting where I have older kids who are now adults and then I'll have these younger kids. So I've seen what competitive sports is like with my older kids who are now not playing sports anymore because they're adults. They don't realize how you can, we're not quite ready for it yet. And 1 or 2 seasons rolls by and then you're really at a competitive disadvantage. At soccer, that might be 7. If you wait till 7, you might be 2 years behind the other kids. It doesn't mean you can't catch up. It doesn't mean your kid still can't have fun. But in volleyball, I feel like that's like 7th grade now. Like if you're waiting until 7th grade, like you've missed a lot of that early development. Is there a time where you feel like it's really hard for a kid to show up for the first time and just kind of pick the ball up?
Here, freshman year.
Yeah.
Makes it really hard.
Sure.
I think it's still okay in middle school. I mean, middle school volleyball's only been here for 5 years, I think now.
Crazy.
So, I mean, when Kira started, luckily, because I was ready to start a club,
Yes.
but they started about 5 years ago, and just watching it, it's definitely grown. The talent, it's made a big difference. I truly believe when I was at Rossview back in 05, 06, and then I was there again 11, 12, and 13. Something like that. Yeah, it was just so hard to compete with the other Nashville schools who had kids that were playing year round. And so and even today, like, they've still been playing and we're just catching up.
Right.
So when Clarksville High goes to compete at sectionals against Memphis schools, we just get clobbered because they have some big athletes too.
Sure. Yeah. Population has always been a topic of conversation really for every sport that we have. School population size is another thing that, we might be taking a school of 1,000 or 1,100 to compete against a school of 1,500. And obviously those numbers, work out. But basketball in our area, that's always kind of been a conversation. How do these other metro areas have so much condensed talent, that's just athletically superior to maybe what we're able to consistently put out? And yeah, we've got these generational talents that come along every once in a while. But, the Ashley Slays who dominate Innsworth and dominate Austin P, like, they're not growing up here in Clarksville.
No, it's definitely hard. I think this past year and even the year before has been the first year that I feel like we can actually produce more college athletes. Like I believe anyone can go play in college if they want to. Yeah. Like I truly believe that. But you have to have that desire, and you also have to have the reality, like, okay, you're not going to go maybe to Austin P,
sure,
but you might be able to go to a small school or even play on a JV team at like Cumberland University or something like that.
You need to say that one more time, because you have this context. Something you just said is so fascinating that I feel like my parents who are my age in this stage of parenting, let's say kids 10 and under, like you said, you might not be able to go to Austin P. You might go to a small school. In their head, they think Austin P is a small school. Yeah. They don't think it's a Division I program that's recruiting across the entire country, and how few kids actually make it to this level of competition. Yeah. Because when we have the volleyball kids over for dinner at our house or something like that, or we go to an event, the volleyball girls are there, I'm 5'7" and I'm the shortest one there. Like these are not the typical like club level teams of like random girls being thrown together. I mean, the coaches in these programs are going all across the country producing, recruiting, I should say, these girls who are prototypical volleyball players. And Austin P is a really high level of competition in the volleyball world.
Correct. Yeah. Division I. I mean, I was told I would never go Division I, and as an athlete, you think, oh, well, I'm going to prove them wrong. And so in your head, when you're young, especially, you think that that's all you're going to do. Now, luckily, the route took me a different way. I mean, I did get to play. I played 2 years at a junior college, and then I went from there to a Division I school. I didn't know better then. You know what I'm saying? I was young. My parents weren't athletes in college, so they didn't really, have a direction to guide me in. So now I feel like I just know a lot more. Yeah. And there's just so much out there for these kids. There's opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just have to be open to them.
Yeah. And Coach Shelby said the same thing. I mean, he's put multiple kids in football programs. It's just, the idea that you're great in 7th grade and you're going to have this opportunity at D1, you don't know if it's going to play that out. As a parent of, kids who have been really competitive, obviously your son has achieved a lot of success playing football at Clarksville High, and your daughter's had a lot of success too. What is a parent's role in just kind of being a parent or maintaining connection to their kid, guiding them through the process and not pushing them too hard, but yet letting them pursue the opportunities that they're find enjoyment in and fulfillment in? What have you learned as a parent during that process?
Don't talk about what went wrong or, during games. Like just be there for them. Tell them they did a great job, just kind of be their support.
Yeah.
It's hard for me, especially as a coach, for my daughter more so. Davin, not so much, because I didn't know a lot about football or baseball or all that. But for Kira, like I just have to, I have to wait a little bit, just kind of hold back a little bit, so, but it's been a great experience for me to have that daughter who's done that. And I get to learn from that. I've learned a lot about the college recruiting process that way. And just, it's just been a great experience. Like I tell her all the time, I was like, yeah, but I'm going to go to your practice because I really want to watch how your coaches are coaching because I want to learn from those coaches, you know?
I'm not trying to spy on you.
No, she's always she's like, I want to drive myself because she's driving out to Murfreesboro right now to play.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, I take her most of the time, but sometimes, you know, I let her go by herself. But I am learning. I love to learn.
Yeah.
I love to learn from other coaches. I don't feel like I'm content, even though I've been doing this 20 plus years. You know, I just feel like there's more out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. Terry Boykin mentioned the same thing about how much of he feels the responsibility of, you know, we are telling these kids, go practice, go train, go get the reps in, get the touches in. I don't know what you call it in volleyball, but whatever, just go home and get some extra in. And yet are they coaches doing the same thing? Are they trying to learn more?
Correct.
Are they trying to expand their knowledge base a little bit, see how their game might be changing, might be adapting, or are you just doing the same thing you've done for 10 years? That was interesting kind of point. You mentioned Kira's, you know, kind of traveling to Murfreesboro to play a part of her club team there, right? So there is a element that I think, you know, kids with really high levels of success potential, whether that's soccer, basketball, baseball to some degree, like our local club organizations, our travel teams that are in our area may not provide the level of exposure that maybe these high talent kids, these D1 kids are getting. What would you say to parents who start to feel some of that? And in volleyball, when did you make that transition for her of like, hey, you obviously run this club, but you know the limitations that the club might have. We're going to look for you some different opportunities because we know that, for example, in soccer, Kelly Guth said, no one's recruiting high school soccer kids.
Correct.
They're recruiting club soccer kids on these teams. My niece plays in Macon, Georgia, and she's traveling to Atlanta to play for this level of competition where I'm sure Kim McGowan at Austin P is going to look at this level of kid, you know, because they're on that club team. So when did you feel kind of as a parent of like, oh, you know, I've got a great club. The organization is great here. It's right here next time. I'm here, there all the time, but my daughter has some opportunity and we want to make that investment of time and money and energy into kind of giving her the opportunity to play at a higher level. Yeah.
So even before Kira, I was always very honest with parents. Like, I'll tell you about every club that's out there that I know about, you know, and I do my best not to ever talk negatively about them because, you know, I have, you know, I just want the best for every kid.
Right.
So the problem is sometimes is a kid could be good enough or could be at the highest level here in Clarksville, but when they go to that club, there's seniority. They know those kids. They don't know this kid from Clarksville that's coming out. So it's a little bit hard. I mean, they do a tryout just like everybody else. And, you know, 2-day tryout sometimes doesn't really show what they can do. So, you know, I always encourage kids, like, go try out at multiple clubs. See where you're going to fall. Yeah. You know, my biggest thing is like, who you're going to be coached by. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're making a 2s or 3s team, like, who's your coach? So that was the biggest thing there. Now with Kira, she's been playing since she was 10, and she's always been playing 2 levels up. Up until last year, she played 1 level up, because once you get to the 18s, it's, you know, the recruiting wise. So once you get to 18s, there's some call, and now things have changed with the portal. So it's just, it's changed so much in the last couple of years. I'm going to say something, but then it's not really true. Yeah. Like for 18s, you know, different types of colleges are looking at those kids versus the kids that are in the 17s and the 16s. So there's no colleges looking at 14 or 15-year-old girls unless they're phenoms, unless they're, you know, 6 foot, or I wouldn't even say the height, unless they're touching 10 or above. Then they're not looking at them.
Jumping vertical with your hand.
Touching as high as you can. Like 10 is what Division I schools want.
And that would be a girl essentially being able to touch the rim of a basketball goal. That's 10 foot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of kids that can do that.
This is me as like non-volleyball. Like I'm taking it all in as a non-volleyball parent.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And so it's really not height. Like there's a girl, I think at Arkansas a couple of years ago, was 5'7", and she was killing it on the court as a hitter because she could jump. I don't remember what her touch was recorded at, but 9'5", 9 feet 6 inches is probably the start that Division I coaches really want to see.
Wow.
Is right around that.
That's up there.
And even I just talked to an NAIA or a Division II coach yesterday, and that's what she's looking at. That's what her player's at. So she's got a 6'1" kid that can't jump very high, maybe not an arm, you know, fast arm swing. Yeah. But, you know, it just depends. There again, like I always criticize Kira's height because I'm 5'11", my husband's 6'4". She's maybe 5'10" with shoes on. Okay. So and that's short for a Division I player.
World, right.
I was short in the volleyball world. So you don't think that, but then you get out there and you see these girls that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and just athletic.
We had a real ball watching the women's volleyball Final Four, this year. It was really fun. And my wife came in, she played soccer at Austin P, and she said, "How tall is that girl?" And I was like, "I don't know. I think she's like 6'4". And she said, 6'4", really? And it was just, she's never been around the volleyball world, but that was pretty typical of a lot of the girls who were out there, which is, it's interesting. But when you go to Austin P, you're still kind of blown away. Like, there's a prototype here. But you still feel like volleyball, the kids who maybe, let's say, can't touch 9.5, there's still opportunities in our local community to play, be a part of the sport, enjoy it. You just got to kind of develop the skills to figure out what your niche is on a team.
For sure. Yeah. For sure. And like I said, there's so many divisions out there. There's schools still today that come up that I have never heard of. And I see a lot of schools doing what I do and stuff. But I do think there's opportunity for these kids to play no matter what. But I get a lot of kids that drop about 16, 17, 18 years old because they just want to go to UT Knoxville and go experience that, which is completely fine too. Yeah. They just want to play and be good enough to, make their varsity team in high school. Yeah. So that's what we're here for.
And honestly, I think that's a very reasonable goal. I think when I grew up here, I played St. B Little League. I was kind of more on the baseball side of things, played a little club, travel baseball. And then I was very fortunate. I didn't know that I was average or above average, but it just kind of like, okay, sophomore, you're playing on varsity, and then junior and senior year, you're starting varsity baseball player. And it's just kind of normal. And like, I just grew up around it. And now I look at it, I think, wow, that funnel of kids who are playing from 4th and 5th grade, like they're pretty competitive, to then you get into middle school and that 8th grade year hits, and that varsity middle school, at least basketball and baseball, like that funnel tightens quite a bit. And then you get to 9th, 10th grade, and to really be playing and starting on your high school team here in a lot of sports means you're a pretty good athlete, even across multiple schools. Like, you've put in the work, like you've done really good. And that can be considered a success. My hope for my girls is, if they decide to play sports long-term, that they find something that they enjoy, and we give them opportunities to compete as long as, they potentially want to compete. But if they get nothing else but the desire to work hard, to stay committed to something, to get coaching from a good coach, work together through team drama as that plays out over the years, to me, that's a win, because you're going to launch into whatever college you go to, whatever industry you go to, and you're going to be able to contribute to the society. And that's really our goal of getting our kids into, hey, you can go and live happy, productive lives and contribute to whatever else we've got going on as a community.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, life skills, that's what I tell the families when I take these kids on. I mean, the things that I learned being a volleyball player has helped me as an adult. So, 100%. Employers I know are hiring, they would prefer to almost hire athletes that have kind of had a regimen.
Man, what through their, was it? I don't want to speak out of turn.
I know Enterprise does it. They're big on it.
Enterprise is big on it. But it was the CEO of a company, and he said, I really look for college athletes for one reason. They know how to be coached. They can have direct feedback and not take it personal that, hey, you didn't show up on time. We expect better from you. You've let your team down. And they can handle it without it feeling like an attack. They're after me. They're this. No, we care about you, and we care about the team, and your responsibility to show up together as the team and meet expectations that this whole team is doing, whether it's Enterprise Rent-A-Car or whether it's a pediatric dental office. Yes. That ability to be coached, I can tell when somebody's played a high level of sports. I mean, I've got one right now who is a really high level gymnast. And just yesterday, there was something that didn't quite go the way that I wanted to go. It was really innocent, but I said, hey, can I coach you for a moment? Locked in, eye contact. I mean, the whole time I'm saying, as a parent, like it might have been perceived this way. You didn't intend it to be this way, but let's try to do this. And she's locked in. She's like, yeah, I got you. I mean, amazing how those skills come from coaching. And it's not always from parents who are coaches, but just different coaches of sitting under someone else's instruction, sitting under someone else's tutelage as you kind of go through a season. Yeah.
Learning to get along with people. That's a big one too that I deal with. I mean, I deal with girls, and girls hold grudges for a very long time. I coached a men's team one time.
What was the difference?
Oh, they would be mad at each other one minute, get in a brawl, and be fine the next. I mean, it was awesome. I was like, it was some of the best experiences I had just because they were.
That's what we need to do is the behind the scenes stories of the middle school girl coaches. What is the drama that you guys are actually dealing with? Because I would imagine 7th grade girls is probably one of the toughest ages out there.
It's tough, but you know what's really tough right now is keeping their attention. Their attention spans are... it's got to be social media. It's got to be fact that they're seeing these reels, so quick through it. I mean, that has been, I've seen it over the years, and I feel like this year was probably the hardest for me. I was at Richview, and so it was the hardest there this year, just trying to keep them focused and listen to direction and apply it.
Sure.
So that was tough.
Yeah. What advice would you give for parents as it relates to that world of engaging the digital world? Because you've lived it. I've lived it. Yeah. I think I tell parents it was the single hardest challenge of parenting that we had from, you think you're making a really innocent decision of like, oh yeah, you can watch this one YouTube show and you can watch it on the iPad. And I don't mind if you watch it in your room and you're 10 years old and all of a sudden you snap your fingers and you got a 15-year-old with a phone who's getting in their car with their friends and they're off. And it's like, how do you start to like set them up for success?
Yeah, it's tough. I monitor it. Yeah. I tried to as much as possible just to make sure that they were making right decisions. I talked to them a lot about things that happened that weren't good and, appropriate things to do and so on and so forth. And, sure, we ran into, a couple problems here and there, but for the most part, my kids at least were pretty good. But as far as other parents, like I've had to tell parents like, hey, this is what she's posting on social media. Like, maybe to keep an eye out, because my biggest thing too is like, you got to watch out for bullying and girls being mean to each other and talking about each other and everybody. I tell them all the time, they want to hear the gossip. They want to hear what's going on, but sometimes it's best just to say, hey, I don't want to hear that right now, and just kind of let it go. Yeah. So it's a yearly thing that happens, but I just try to remind them, like just this week, I had meetings with all my teams, like, hey guys, let's be kind, we went over all of those
basic human skills,
basic human skills. Like this is, you wouldn't like it if somebody said, these such things to you. So it's just trying to help them understand and maybe not hear it from their parent, but maybe somebody else. So I know that like I sometimes would suggest like, hey, can you go tell my kids that for me? Because they would just respect it from you a little bit more.
I have such this interesting experience with that because literally every day I'll have a parent will like give me an elbow and be like, tell them to brush their teeth, tell them to use floss, they won't listen to me. And I'm like, you guys realize like, I see them twice a year. Like they're really not going to listen to me. Sometimes they do. It's like the 4-year-olds, right? They do. The 14-year-olds, I don't have the authority to like where they really care. Right. But it is interesting how as the role that coaches can play in that. And what's been really profound as I've talked to more and more people who deal with lots of athletes at really high levels of competition, it's very important to all of you to build great people. Mm-hmm. And it is really not so much about, let's say, the X's and O's on a certain court or, the measurables that you get or the wins and the losses. Because if you can create great teams with great people, with great players who want to work together and achieve a goal together, then you get the results that you're wanting for on the competition side of things. Definitely. And I think that's hard, especially for parents who enter into that stage of parenting with athletes around 7 to 10. Because you want to make it about wins and losses, and you want to make it about how many layups did you make, how many did you miss, and how many fouls did you have, and it just has nothing to do with that, with their long-term success. And I hope if more people listen to these episodes of people across different industries, that's what they get, is that really capturing the heart of your kid, wanting them to have fun, but teaching them how the lessons of life relate to this competition, how you can work together as a team. Like that is really what it's about. And some athletes are going to rise and they're going to really achieve high levels. Davin's one of them, right? Great success. I'm super happy for him. But what he's going to really benefit from is the lessons that come along the way. What's it like to struggle through adversity as a freshman coming in on a really high successful football team, and you're watching from the sidelines? And what does that look like as you kind of fight for your spot, and you've got drama over here and you've got to work through that, and you got a coaching change, now you got a new manager at your organization. Yep. It's like, man, all of these things are just preparing you for life.
For sure. For sure. I love the structure. I remember as a college athlete, it was the best. And I always wanted it for my kids, some sort of, so cool. To me, sports was it.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, let me ask you this question. If you had a big goal, big vision for where Clarksville volleyball goes from here? Like, what's something that on an achievement level that you would say, man, if we could accomplish that here, like that would be really special to me, considering all the work you've put into building it to what it is now.
I would like to continue to watch the kids go on and play.
Yeah.
Preferably in college, but it's not even that. It's like, I like to watch my former students see what they become in life. You know what I mean? Like doctors or teachers.
Sure.
I that's what I like to go look back. Cause I mean, I was at 20 years ago, I started at Rossview. That's
Whoops.
So weird.
Yeah.
So crazy. But like, those kids are now having kids. As a matter of fact, I have some kids of former players that play for my club. I have past players that come back and coach for me, which is the biggest to me compliment.
Sure.
Is to have my former players come back and coach for me, or bring their kids over to me, or, you know, little sisters that come back because their older sister played. Like, that sort of thing is great for me. As far as the big picture of it, like, I just want to see those kids. If they want to play in college, I want to help them get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that there's some people in town, like specific to our community, that's really been a big part of your success that you've had?
Oh yeah, for sure. The Knott family has been amazing. When I was looking for a facility, I don't even remember how it happened, but I ended up in a warehouse with no walls and just dusty floors with a sport court in there. And that's where I started my first in 2000. I think it was, it had to be before 2015. That's officially when I started Clarksville Volleyball Club. But yeah, and it was in what's now Acme.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's been fun to watch that growth. So Trent's been amazing in that. And then when Chase, you know, graduated from college, he came over and really helped with the whole Acme athletics theme and building that. And, you know, we've done soccer in there. We've done baseball. We've done softball. We've done it all. But volleyball seems to be like the big one that's going on in there. And
well, I will say it may have been last weekend or the weekend before. We went to a birthday party at City Forum, and you drive in and you just see this entire parking lot full. And I knew it was volleyball, you know, and it was just like, as a non-volleyball parent at this point, but as somebody who loves to see kids get opportunities, I was just really thrilled. Like, hey, we have something really cool going on here, and I'm not even involved in it, you know, but it's like kids are getting the opportunity to play. People are coming in from out of town. I would love to see us have a big multi-use sports facility where we could have, you know, multiple opportunities for basketball and indoor soccer and volleyball and things like that. But to see parking lots full, that was fun. I mean, just driving through there, and I didn't even go in and watch it. You know, we went to Austin P the other day, and we saw the beach girls out practicing, and you know, Kyla and I, we sat down and kind of watched them play for just a little bit. She was really excited about that. But I think giving those 8, 9, 10-year-olds kind of opportunities to even see what's possible, to see, you know, big grown-up teenage girls compete and have fun and be a part of, you know, big energy. That is cool to me, because they'll want to be a part of it. They'll want to, you know, grow in the sport and try something new, and learning how to direct the volleyball in the direction that you want to go is not an easy thing. It takes a lot of mental skill and determination to kind of keep practicing to put it in the right place. So I know those skills are really valuable. Was there anything else that you know, kind of wanted to touch on for the end of the episode?
I mean, I'm blessed to have the staff that I have. I mean, if it wasn't, I mean, I have 27 coaches. And so it's just, and that's a constant, like, changing out just because of military town and all that stuff. But I have some really great coaches that have shaped, you know, this whole thing with me. It's not just me. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Everybody who's done high levels of success relies on people to get there. You know, it's a team sport, you know, it is for sure. It is. Well, that's exciting. Jen, thanks so much for your time. This has been really fun. You know, I'm thrilled to have seen you, you know, be committed to growing this sport really while you're raising your kids. That's so admirable, because you could have, you know, totally diverted your attention, and for good reason, of, you know, kind of started it and then went away for a season, but you've really been committed to this for the long haul. I know my girls are going to get to have opportunities, if nothing else, you know, just like a little recreational thing here or a camp in the summer, but they're going to get chances to experience something new and be a part of something because of the work that you've put in. And I think another generation goes by, and we're going to see even more girls have opportunities to play. Who knows? We maybe get guys sports volleyball around here. I'd love to get
a boys volleyball team going.
Yeah, that would be really fun. And it's sad that my girls didn't even know that men could play volleyball until the Olympics. You know, it's kind of like, oh, boys can play too, because of the way that it works, like they've never seen that before. Right. And that was kind of an odd experience. But your work and your commitment to our community, somebody coming in here fresh just from the military and saying, hey, we're going to create something here. As somebody who grew up here and went to school here, Austin P, like, I'm really thankful for that. So thank you for, you know, what you've done. And I'm excited to see where it takes you from here.
I'm excited as well.
Yeah, I know it'll be successful.
Really am.
Well, hey, thanks for making it to the end of this episode. I know that you have just thoroughly enjoyed Jen's story, just like I have. People like her, what make our community great. Somebody that just comes in and says, hey, I've got this experience. I've got this passion. I've got this interest, and I'm going to create something. And here we are 20 years later. You know, she kind of sighed when she said it, but here we are. That's the long, steady pace of success. And she's got, you know, Clarksville Volleyball Club that's just providing lots of opportunities for girls in our community to achieve high levels of academic and also athletic success, where they're getting these life skills to translate into wherever their life takes them from there. But if you enjoyed this episode, go back a few episodes. We've got other coaches from other sports that we've highlighted, and they say the same thing, that really sports is about fun. It's about teaching kids skills so that they can make that transition into their big adult lives and be contributions to our society at that point. So go check those episodes out too. Thanks so much for making it to the end of this episode. We'll catch you on the next one.